we're at the southeast corner of the development site. Go up towards the right here, up to about the 4th stoplight or 3rd stoplight. That will be 20th Street and Telegraph, which is where the anchor portion, the largest portion of our development will be located. Most of the buildings on this side of the street here are empty. Maybe 2 million square feet of empty commercial office space and retail space in this small area alone. This building with the LCB sign on it is primarily a completely empty building. It seems a shame to waste all this development site for just this small bit of revenue that doesn't generate a serious amount of business tax increment to the city of Oakland. We want to bring the money back home. All of the commercial stuff, your corporate, your recording, video sound stages, etc. will be located in the building that will sit on this site. Then we could have 3 buildings wrapped around the Fox Theater. One huge complex that could operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, creating 3 8-hour job positions. So 3 8-hour opportunities in a single day. Perpetual money mill. Income generating, tourist drawing, and city profiting. How amazing, how extremely gorgeous and extraordinary the design work is in that theater. Originally, this thing was set up for vaudeville, so the acoustics in it are like superb. The seats were set on fire inside the theater in 1973, and then at that point the Fox was closed from 1973 till now. This Fox Theater would become the new International Academy of the Performing Arts. It would be the only one ever built on the West Coast.
The Fox Theater offers a great opportunity for the downtown revitalization. It's a wonderful old building. It's on a historic register. The only theater in Oakland presently where you can really have live entertainment. We should probably take this street and this street over here and maybe close them. Look what happened when we closed 13th Street at lunch or as they're walking by on their way to the office. It's a wonderful place. People who do stage sets, people who do design with virtual imagery, such as you'll see in Las Vegas, projections on walls and things like that. All of that can happen along these closed streets. And so they can become really places to be at night and weekends. At times when the rest of the city seems to close down, this is the place that really starts to come alive. It's going to be very important to make this successful, to control the area around it. You cannot just build this in isolation and expect people to flock to it. It just can't happen that way.
Right now, the land behind me, the blacktop, is the one piece of land that has currently been impacting the entire development site for the proposed TriMid Fox development project. This site, prior to getting to this status, was mentioned to a development company, which I was involved with, at some point was negotiating with, who decided that they would take this site and make it their own after they decided not to proceed forward with us and said they had no interest in this city. So now for somebody that has no interest in the city, it looks pretty interesting to me that they've had a piece of land tied up here for the last 4 years. And this land has nothing on it. They're consistently asking for more money from the city and not providing anything. There's still not one stick out here. This is RDA land, Redevelopment Agency land. If you've got that kind of money and you're such a great power, you should be out here building. Give the city a break, give the residents a break, give TriMid a break.
And the TriMid project has been the vision of Xavier Gardner for many years. And it didn't necessarily revolve around one particular standard shape or form. It revolved around a whole idea of how best to serve a society, a city in this case is in need of some better facilities and better identification to its downtown. The way he did that was to try to sum it up in forms that were both evocative, powerful, the kinds of forms that you would never forget once you crossed the bridge. You would remember that you'd seen those remarkable forms in downtown Oakland. And they become icons for that city, very much like the pyramid over in San Francisco has become over the last 30 years. And you can see it everywhere in the world, repeated in one way, form, shape, or another. Our objective is not just to build pyramids. I mean, our objective is to revitalize a city. There's nothing to say that the shapes and sizes of these pyramids can't be really enlisted in the generation of electricity. There's great potential here for cladding these with photovoltaic panels, glazed panels. And there's no reason at all to think that this building couldn't be a green building and be LEED certified. I don't know if you know what LEED is, that's L-E-E-D. It stands for the certification agency who has now published tests to achieve such certification. The fact that it's going to generate a large quantity of its own power would be an extremely important thing for it to do. Unlike Las Vegas, which draws all of its power from the grid, here we're actually doing a great deal to generate our own power. When you have sloping walls like this, they're much more are adaptable to picking up energy from the sky. Reason why you can't do this. And in fact, in earthquake country, that's exactly what you want to do. What we're saying is, in a building which has lateral bracing done in a more unconventional way, shall we say, usually it always results in less weight of steel, always results in less high-tech connections, and always results in greater economies almost everywhere. It's very possible to have an elevator now that comes up this way through the frame. It no longer has to rise straight up. So it's using the most modern and available technology to its advantage. For all of those reasons, we believe that the approach that this group brings to the table is ultimately going to be an approach that can be very, very successful. It just has to be given a chance.
Thank you so much, Franz. This TriMid project is designed and designated for the welfare and the benefit of the general community at large. What we want from the city is for us to give us the entire development site that we want for the TriMid Fox Development Project. In exchange for that, the concession we're ready to give to the city is to take these buildings here at Bibliomania from the east side of Telegraph to the west side of Broadway, from 19th to 17th. Rip all that out, relocate the tenants. As a matter of fact, we're going to incorporate these businesses into the outer wall design and carry that theme on, so they really wouldn't be lost. If anything, by allowing us to do the development that we are proposing doing, these businesses would be enhanced. All of these things that have been mentioned up to this point and beyond are going to be done at absolutely zero cash cost to the city. In all of this that we see, our goal is to revive the city at large. We want to be the heart of the city and give the city a bigger heart for those who would come to visit. My name is Xavier Gardner, and I am a creator of the concept and visionary for the REMAKEOFTRIAMID development to be located in the city of Oakland. It's a wonderful project, some 4.2 million square feet in mass, designed to bring a greater level of tourism to the East Bay and to create an icon that can draw the focus to this wonderful city that we live in and like to do business in. And I'm here today at Movie1 Architects with Mr. Franz Steiner, who is the architect of record for this wonderful development.
I'm Franz Steiner from Movie1 Architects, of course, and I'm here with Xavier, again, a friendship that goes back many years, has slowly but surely started to build a broad base of good design and an exciting project for Oakland. And we have identified a couple of sites. I think we're going to be talking this morning about one site in particular. That site is called the Army Base. It offers a great opportunity for business success in that it's right at the junction of the Bay Bridge, the maze or the interchange that comes off the Bay Bridge, the confluence of a major railroad station, and right next to the very busy Port of Oakland.
See, Oakland is the third largest port in the United States. It has the whole of the Pacific Rim economy. The majority of its commerce comes right through this port right here to my right. Hold on to your hats because there's much more where this came from.
We now know that the city is going to assume control and essentially the ownership of it in 2006, August of 2006. We know that the city is very anxious to get developers or developer focused on that project and signed up with an exclusive right to negotiate to develop a project. We know that the city wants to have a hotel there. They want to have commercial office buildings. They want to have, in fact, just about everything there except individual housing. So that's very exciting because that's just the kind of a project that we were envisioning all along.
When we're looking at this structure, what goes in this wonderful project, we're going to look at all the major uses. There's theater, there's education, there's hoteliers, restaurateurs, haute couture fashion, our own power generation system, air quality treatment, Cinemaxes, Cineplexes, recording studio concept, there's filming capabilities, video capabilities, and everything else that would make this a complete city in and of itself. REMAKEOFTRIAMID City, one-stop, do-it-all place, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's the one place for maximizing employment opportunities as well as maximizing revenues back to the local communities and the city government at large. It's also going to be a wonderful way to help the state out too, because it's going to create that other attraction, much like Disney World. Things like brain pubs and virtual reality arcades, major museums, and Louvre, or any of these other types of cultural acts. Not to mention the fact, lightly, that it would create an area for a United Nations Walk of Fame, where other countries that participate in the United Nations could be represented by virtue of putting their things out in a holographic kiosk. You walk by, people walk through and actually look and walk around these things and see the contributions these other countries have made to the global welfare, the global benefit. This is what the REMAKEOFTRIAMID complex is all about.
Yes, Oakland and the Bay Area get certain advantages from this project, but I think you need to also talk about it from the standpoint of the users, the potential leaseholders of the project. There is a growing need for office space for businesses that are associated with the port activities. And there are other businesses which simply want to be located along the waterfront and want to have or occupy very prominent icons or landscape milestones that are easily recognizable for the itinerant traveler going by either on train, by car, or potentially even by aircraft, because it happens to be on the flight path from the Oakland International Airport.
This is pretty much what we were focusing on with this TriMid project, was something that could stand apart and alone amongst the cacophony of maybe smaller, unrelated types of buildings, but something that would create a focal point that people would look, oh, there it is. You can't miss it. It's functional art is what we're proposing here. A functional art piece that serves as the centerpiece, like that one rose in the middle of a beautiful garden. It just stands out, and it reaches out to people. It's inviting, and attracting the kind of tenants that I would think we would want to have would require a location of this type, something that made them feel welcome and made their purchasers and other people, potential tenants, welcome. We want this welcoming environment. This particular site that we're talking about now, there's also a proposed 15-acre park. So we've got the outdoor aspect of this pulling in as well, and I don't believe that there's any other place close by or in the near region that has that kind of component where you actually would almost be a business in the middle of a park. Mm-hmm. It's a wonderful concept and a beautiful vision. It goes right along with what we've been speaking about as a portion of our development, a location called Everyman Square. And having that outdoor component, that everyman's type of feel to this, and adds to the allure of a location like this, not to mention the fact that it is a high profile location. Besides being able to assume a very prominent profile against the bay and the background of the East Bay Hills, is that the whole East Bay kind of focuses on it. Like the hills around it form almost a bowl that look down on it. And being, again, at the water's edge, it has that ability to reflect anything it is. So if it is a luminous object or a semi-transparent object, as it will be at night, both luminous and transparent, it could be bigger and better than any bogart you could ever put out. It is right at the water's edge, and it can be easily seen from San Francisco on the one side, from the airport and the flights, as we said, from above, and from automobiles coming across the Bay Bridge, and people on Amtrak, and people on BART. So just about every conceivable transportation type of vehicle goes by this site sometimes, many times a day. The other part of it is that sitting as it does at the edge of the water means that it now starts to create a sort of dialogue with the city skyline in San Francisco, or at least it could, if the buildings were properly designed. If the buildings also acknowledged the waterfront site and responded to the opportunities that the site affords. So let's just visualize for a moment how it might look. We've talked a lot about photovoltaic systems in the past and how we'd like to get this building project essentially off the grid, developing enough of its own power so that it could function day in and day out. One of the main things there with the fact that the type of energy cogeneration, we're using a material that's a photovoltaic material. It's called gallium arsenide, and it's a very high quality material that's used by NASA and the other space agencies probably around the world because it's so unique. But it does allow us to generate power. And the shape and design of how we're using the domes, these slope-sided domes, as a grid to lay out this photovoltaic pattern so that we can receive this source to generate our power and become an adjunct, so to speak, to other generating utilities that we have here in the area that could not only serve this area, but could very well serve major components of the East Bay and the Bay Area at large. That's right. They can, on weekends and some off days or some bright days or something like that, it may generate plus power to feed power back into the grid. You know, it's not just the photovoltaic cells themselves. We're thinking about photovoltaic glazing.
that does several things for us that's worth talking about a little bit. First of all, some of these glazings and thin films offer some pretty exciting technology for us now. Think of buildings which iridesce. Think of buildings which scintillate in the sunlight or in a setting sun. Think of buildings that have color at night from the interior lighting, and these will be colors like you've never seen before, perhaps except in a dragonfly's wing or something like that. These colors are something that you see only in certain kinds of gems and jewelry, and they are absolutely some of the most beautiful things you've seen. Well, you can use these glasses, these glazing products, and generate power and electricity and control your daylighting at the same time. Why is all of that important to work together or to bring together? Well, it's important because sustainable design really means it's a balanced design. And you balance it very carefully depending on the facade directions, the orientation of the building, of course the climate. And by the way, it's worth mentioning that this particular microclimate is a very benevolent one in that you can do a lot of your cooling just by opening a window here. And it's a very constant temperature year round, so your energy needs are going to be fairly minimal, or maybe if I were to be conservative here, I would say that you could cut in half the Title 24 energy requirements by 50% with this project.
So what we're talking about here are these primordial shaped buildings, all square floors that rise in height, some 7, 14, and 21 stories, with respective doming over each one at the heights of 10, 20, and 30 stories. So that there'd be enough inside airspace, enough light always coming into the building, because we're talking about shapes that allow light to come in from all 4 sides at any given time of the day. We're talking something that allows us to look through and take full advantage, much like Mr. Stein was saying about having buildings that could iridesce. And I would love to see shapes like these iridesce at sunset, just go haywire with color.
Well, really, it would be very exciting, and I think the shapes are an interesting discussion all in their own right. I mean, not only are we trying to create something that is an icon and is different and original and fresh, we're also trying to create a skyline. We're trying to create a sense of importance at the confluence of all of these energies and transportation systems. But we're also in a sense, acknowledging some of the other technology. Maybe it's part of the technology that people don't often see or even know about. But that is the fact that this is earthquake country. And that site, as well as most of the sites in the Bay Area, sit on many sites, at least around the bay itself and the waterfront, sit on bay mud. And it is an opportunity to just simply show that not only can we design a project that is going to be safe to occupy during and immediately after an earthquake, but there won't be any downtime lost because of an earthquake. We can do this. The technology exists today, and we can furthermore do it at very little increment in extra cost. You will hardly see it. And part of the reason for these pyramidal shapes or these walls that come up is because there is almost a inherent bracing system that is created in the steel frames by building those shapes. It also allows you to reduce foundation loads, which is important in bay mud. It helps to control the number and types of pilings that you put in underneath these foundations. And so you have this almost a beautiful symmetry between the functional needs of the geoseismic location of the site, as well as the form giving to the buildings, as well as the technology to build and support these buildings. And it all comes together in very nice ways. It's certainly clear, at least to me, and I think others, that these sloping walls, whether they be 10 stories high or 50 stories high, have a lot of inherent advantages, and that they also create some absolutely wonderful shapes. If you look across the bay to one of the icons in San Francisco, which is the Transamerica Pyramid, you will see the sense to it. You will see how and why that is such a successful building and how it works on so many different levels. Well, here we're talking about the same kind of thing, except that it's multiplied. It is, and also it's put on a site where it stands alone, where it is not surrounded by other high-rises. Downtown Oakland is still 4 miles away, 3 miles away. So you are out on a promontory right by another fascinating structure, namely the New Bay Bridge, which is going to be this lovely arch of cables supporting a very, very long span, very light, elegant bridge. And using all of these things as a backdrop for the buildings, I mean, it becomes an extremely powerful set of images. It's almost like you will drive or fly by this and it will become hardwired into your memory banks. You will never forget what you see. And you will never forget the excitement of being in it, walking and being a part of it, walking through it, living or renting space in it. It will always be a special and unique environment. And that's what we're trying to create.
That's what Franz is saying with the fact that having that kind of calling card feature, having things hardwired into your brain, into your memory, every time you pass a location like this. The whole initial thrust of this project was to create the world's largest calling card. A place where anyone that was involved in the construction of this would automatically be associated with major, magnificent developments when it came time to do projects around the world. And because every culture and every particular group is represented in the structure of this, it is a humanitarian calling card. It's the largest, and would propose, I wouldn't be surprised if we made Guinness Book with this project.
Well, it's possible, but I guarantee you'll make a telephone book cover.
And that's a good thing.
And many postcards, if they still have postcards in another 10 years. But like this one, this is a leftover from BART, a major element of the success of the entire Bay Area. Going in, both a powerful magnet for development. It is the thing that will hold this community together. And in fact, in the face of increasing gasoline prices, will assume more and more of a role in our development. Well, BART goes right by this site, that's one thing. But this postcard shows that BART, in their latest round of expansions, is incorporating art and are very much in support of doing good design, because they realize that good design means a healthy, vital community that wants to do something that they're going to be remembered for, wants to, in a way, leave a gift for future generations, but more than anything else, wants to excel. Good design is good business. If you have a project that is just going to be perhaps low and unaspiring and unexciting in such a important and highly visible site, it's a waste. It's a waste of time and everybody's energy. So what you do with a site like that is you do something that's truly exciting and takes advantage of all the natural assets the site offers. Yeah. Xavier and I are here this morning to try out a number of what-ifs. This project might be a little bigger than you're talking about.
Well, that's why I'm
more than 3 buildings.
Well, I mean, it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings.
Well,
The way that we have the plan.
You might have a whole system of things. You'd be looking at the design of this both at day and at night. You'd be looking at it from God's view, 360 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in Foster City and some places around Redwood City,
Oh, yeah.
down by the bay. The wilder the better, they said. Go to the Oracle complex.
Oh, yeah.
And those shapes are all sort of uniform. They're not really wild, but they're powerful.
Mhm.
They're evocative. You tend to remember it. Well, we're talking about something that's to a whole another quantum level above that. There's going to be covered walkways which may have maybe that's one place where really we could use fiber, fabrics of all kinds, and some very light structures like we do in the Movie Station, which is a series of floating vaults,
Oh, okay.
all covered in translucent fabric.
Mm.
You know, making some of these things out of that fabric is just wonderful. It's economic and it's great. Because it lets light in. It's translucent. It's energy efficient. So you could do those kinds of things, and you could hang cables down from these buildings and, you know, create tension structures that are faceted, bold, strong shapes. But they're smaller, and people now can start to relate to the facades and the structure of those buildings. At this interface, it may be desirable and possible to continue some sort of a connection with the water. We do it, of course, here at the beach, and that's one of the nicest connections with water you can ever have, because people can go down there and get wet and stick their feet in it and play in it, and turn their kids loose. But there's another one too. That's, of course, this one from up here, just overlooking water, seeing the sailboats out there. That's a sailboat.
Okay, I'll buy it.
A little out of scale. And there might be the need for just a lovely pavilion. That is like a jewel cantilever coming out over this water. Or perhaps maybe it's got a shape more like this, thrusting out over the water. And this is all faceted glass, brilliant reds and greens, both day and night that you see. And people can stand out here and look back here. There could be a restaurant out here. They could look in this direction at this absolutely lovely big suspension span up our bridge coming in, down, something like that. And it is, it's very close.
Wow.
I mean, what a place.
Yeah.
What a place. And so not only are you reaching out to the entire region by the profiles of all these shapes that are easily visible, but you're also kind of reaching out on the horizontal plane, encompassing the water, overlooking and sort of including the park in this whole complex with trees all the way down here. And finally, you end up with a complete and comprehensive response to the needs of the community on one hand, and on the other hand, a project that just sort of naturally fits on the site, overlooks the site, becomes a part of the site, because it's a part of the water, it's a part of the park, it's a part of the city, the freeways, the bridge, and ultimately, you know, the big icon that you see from the airplane. It's a great site. It's important to leave things better than you found them. The way I think we do it here is, with this particular site, is bringing essentially a gift to the community and to the region that becomes a focus for future development and for better community relations and better business. And that's what we're trying to create. And this is something that's very worthwhile. I mean, it represents the highest aspirations of mankind, I think. And again, I don't mean to be silly, but I do believe that these are the kinds of things that keep us all together as a race, as a people, building a culture, trying to do things that are really important and are going to last. This is what we do. This is what we're taking on as our assignments, if you will, as something that we believe in, something that we have faith in, that we can focus on and build a community by doing this. I think it's eminently valuable for us to do for those reasons, but I think that also it's something that's going to be fun.
This is TriMid. This is the development we're proposing. In summation, world-class tourist vista, tourist attraction, humanitarian endeavor, overall economically empowering for the Bay region at large. This is where we're headed. This is where we'd like to have these industrial, institutional investors and the public participate with us in creating something that they're all going to be able to point to with a great deal of pride and say, hey, we're a part of that humanitarian endeavor, and it makes a lot of sense. So if you want to make sense with us, jump on board with us here with this TriMid situation. And we'll see a lot more than good sense come out of this. We'll see some good living, some good growth, some good education, some good economic opportunities, and they will abound tremendously. We love you. Come get with us.
Says it all.
That says it all. That's TriMid. The TriMid project is a unique project, and it can succeed anywhere it is placed. Seen two of the sites, potential locations for the TriMid project and its development opportunities. We're now showing you a third site, a rather attractive waterfront site, riverfront site in West Sacramento. You would happen to look west from the city of Sacramento into the city of Sacramento. You'll see along the waterfront or riverfront from Old Sacramento a building that is a pretty much close replica of what we want to build there. It's called the Ziggurat Building. It's currently occupied by the state of California and was formerly the Money Store. We don't know who's going to be there once we get through, but what we intend to do is to wrap out the rest of the site, should we take control of that site or gain access to it, and create a huge waterfront recreational vista that has enough land mass to put up a structure of this magnitude. It's also going to create a lot of economic opportunity for the city of West Sacramento, since right now it seems to be burgeoning there, and we have a chance to catch it in its boom cycle. So now what you've seen here are a central city location, a waterfront site for the city of Oakland on the old Oakland Army base near the port container section, and now the riverfront of the Sacramento site in West Sacramento.